and welcome back to my channel. Rachel here. I haven't done a video for ages, so sorry for the disappearing act. I've just had quite a lot of stuff on. We've recently started home educating both kids, so I have the kids all the time now, which is really fab, but it's completely changed everything. Yeah, so, and I've only just got round to having I've got like 20 minutes spare or something like that. One child's in there, one child's up there. We're going to do a review of the first Mother Booker's book, which was The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt, and I have no notes, I have no preparation, I'm just winging it. The Facebook Live is tomorrow night, which by the time you see this has probably already happened, but I just felt like I had to do this video before the Facebook Live because I want to kind of process my thoughts about the whole thing. This morning at kind of 6 AM I got up and wrote my review. I don't really want to call it a review, but my thoughts on my blog, so go and check that out if you like as well. I guess those thoughts will kind of really formulate this video, or the thread of this video. I don't know, I'm just gonna start. So yeah, I finished it last night. It's an absolute beast of a book. It's huge, it's not a small undertaking, it's 860 odd pages. It's the first Donna Tartt book I've ever read. I am familiar with her. She's kind of the Brat Pack writer from New York, who's kind of often put together with like Jane McInerney and Bret Easton Ellis and those types of writers. Yeah, so it's the first Donna Tartt book I've ever read. So I don't know, my thoughts about this book is I think it's an absolute masterpiece. I don't feel like I'm going to be able to be very articulate when I describe what I love about this book and how it made me feel, because it's so complicated, it's so complex. I think she deserved to win the Pulitzer, which she did in 2014. I think I started this book, and there's kind of everyone who reads this book, it's kind of alluded to in the synopsis, and you kind of aware, you know, that like there's a big shattering thing that happens at the start, and there's going to be some spoilers in this video, okay? I'll just say that throughout, and I'll say that in the title so people don't get pissed off with me. So there's a big terrorist attack, and oh, that was really nice, that was my Labrador, sorry about that. And it's about a 13-year-old boy. Sorry, this is so bad. The whole book is centered around a 13-year-old boy. Well, when it starts he's 13, called Theodore Decker, and at the very start of the book, in New York, there's a terrorist attack and his mother dies, and he's injured in this terrorist attack, and it takes place in a museum, and the museum is home to the picture, which is a real picture, called the picture is called The Goldfinch. It's painted by, oh hang on a sec, Fabricius. Yeah, and so what happens is it's related to the picture that's in the gallery, and I don't need to really go into too much detail about what happens. Other reviews online have gone into detail. I don't want to spoil it too much if you want to watch this and then read it. Yeah, and so the book takes you through to when he's age 27, and it kind of skips a chunk in the middle, but generally speaking you're following his progress, although it's not great progress, I wouldn't say. It's the aftermath of grief, and it's told from his perspective in hindsight, looking back, and I found it really, really, really moving as a mum. But anyone I think would find this book really moving. I think it's shattering in places. I was in absolute floods of tears. I think the things I found particularly amazing about this book was kind of the themes of fate, which I think the book is about fate. And I think, so from the very moment this awful thing happens, I think he kind of questions, would it have been different if we hadn't have been in the, you know, my life would have been different if we hadn't have been there that day. Was it my fault that we were there that day? You know, are events just kind of coincidental, or are they predetermined? And this is like a backdrop to the book throughout. I think he's obviously depressed throughout the book, but there's a couple of times in the book where his depression kind of, through kind of drug use mainly on both occasions, and a few things, other things that happen, they kind of reach a kind of level at which it is so well written. I find it so hard to read. I've experienced, not diagnosed depression as such, but I've experienced, I know for a fact I've been depressed at times in my life, and I think God, it was just really, really hard to read, but incredibly just moving to read the account via Theo's narrative of depression. But also he makes some really amazing kind of statements about the fact that, for example, he says it, you know, all the way through, and he says, it confirms it again at the end, that he'll never change his mind, that as far as he's concerned, life is a cesspool and there's no point to it, and it's just a joke, and even if you're lucky enough to fall in love, everyone's taken away from you anyway. And he stands by that right to the end. But in a way, that affirmation and that belief gives license to which we can all just behave not however we like, because there's a tussle with that throughout the book as well. So Theo is always tussling and wrestling with this kind of his like polished side that he kind of learns from being looked after by like very upper class people, but also he has this kind of dark side where he's a drug user and so on. And I think there's that tussle all throughout of being good or being bad, making good decisions, making bad decisions, as that kind of fate or coincidence. So these kind of big ideas that go all the way through it. And I think ultimately it's absolutely heartbreaking, but it's a real commentary on loss and what it's like to lose somebody and to just try and exist and to try and survive. And there's so much interesting stuff in there about kind of art and what art means to people, and how art can become an emblem of kind of love and loss, and how art can express the unexpressible, if that makes sense. I mean, I literally am just rattling this off my head, so I mean, it's very just, you know, these are just the things that I'm thinking out, you know, stream of consciousness style about this book. But this is these are the things that I felt mattered about this book. So there's a big thing with this book. Everybody talks about the fact that it's very long. Yes, it is very long, and does it need to be shorter? I definitely think it could have been a little bit shorter. However, the length of the book, almost in a way, like for me, perhaps represents just the unending pain. Not that reading it is an unending pain, but just like the unending pain of grief. And it's his day-to-day survival, which isn't even, like, a lot of the time he's not living, he's just surviving. It's not an easy read, but it's not like a very, very, very tough read. It's very unique, this book. The language isn't difficult. She's an amazing writer. But I wouldn't say it's a kind of page turner in so much as there's no like major like whodunit kind of page turning plot driven narrative. But you want to find out how this kid does. You're just rooting for him the whole way through, and obviously I can't tell you how it turns out. Yeah, but it's just a heartbreaking depiction, masterful depiction of loss, fate, love, and just the human condition, really. And it makes me feel really quite emotional even talking about it. That's not to say in the middle of it I didn't veer off and get a little bit bored, because I mean, come on, it's massive. I ended up just like dipping in and out of self-help books and even like a factual book about Labradors at one point. And that wasn't to avoid reading it. I was just very daunted by the sheer size of it, because this is the biggest book I've ever read. Yeah, so I don't know, I hope I've covered kind of, well, I think I've covered like the main things I wanted to talk about. So I really would love to know, what did you think? Have you read the Goldfinch? Have you maybe not read the Goldfinch and you've watched this and now it's put you off, or are you switched onto it now? Have you read other Donna Tartt novels? Let me know. And if you do want to record a vlog, or if you want to write a blog post, then do hashtag Motherbookers, and then we can all kind of link them up. And if you're not involved in Motherbookers yet, then do search out the Facebook group and request to join, and I'll add you. I think that's it. That's all for now. So I will be back soon with a video about the home education stuff as well, and just a bit of a update with what I'm up to at the minute. Okay, that's all for now. Bye. Oh, give the video a thumbs up if you like it, and don't forget to share as well. Okay, bye.